All right, so 44 says find the solutions on the interval 0 to 2 pi. This one has two different trig functions, so you want to see if you can factor them out separately. If I move everything to the same side, I get 5 secant x cosecant x minus 10 cosecant x equals 0. And then they both have a cosecant, so I can take out the cosecant. I can also take out 5. You don't have to, but you can also take out 5. So I can do 5 cosecant x. And then if I divide this by 5 cosecant x and this by 5 cosecant x, because that's what we're doing, the 5 goes away and the cosecant goes away, and I get secant x. Minus 5 goes into 10 two times, and then the cosecant cancels. So that's it in factored form, and now the trig functions are separated out, so you can split and solve. So on the left, I would divide both sides by 5, and I get cosecant x equals 0. Cosecant's not on our unit circle, but sine is, so I flip it. Sine is its reciprocal, and the reciprocal of 0 is undefined. Sine is not undefined anywhere. Like if you think about the graph of it, there's no asymptotes, right? So this does not exist. You literally ignore it. On the right, secant x would equal 2. Again, reciprocal function, so we flip it to be cosine. Reciprocal of 2 is 1/2. And then you'd go to your unit circle and you'd find everywhere cosine is a positive 1/2. It happens at the pi over 3, and it happens at the 5 pi over 3. So those are your two solutions. You're welcome. So this one has the graph on it. Obviously, you could just read it directly from your graph. You won't get given this graph, okay? It also tells you to use substitution, but on the test, it's your choice how you do them all. You can use substitution or elimination on any of them. Same thing happened on 46. Again, you wouldn't have the graph, and again, it says substitution, but you could also use elimination.
So you're not like scoring it or
nope. Mm-mm. All right, 48. The answer choices were not, none of those worked. This should have been the answer choice.
What is it? 7 maybe 3 right there.
Yeah, but you needed both. Yeah. Oh, I understand why it's not there now. So it said which one is the solution. Obviously from here, the one that is the solution is D. It won't ask which one is the solution. It's just going to say solve. So both would be there. All right, so 57 said X and what? Oh, you know what? Don't worry about the intercepts. If it's because this one factors into SOAP, like that's your, which is not on there. I'll show you how to do it, but the top, to get an x-intercept, you would set the top equal to 0. And that is factorable. That's your same opposite, always positive, the SOAP one. So that would be x plus 2, x squared minus 2x plus 4. This one gives you an x of negative 2. So that's one of them. X-intercept negative 2 means you can literally rule out those two. And then this, you'd have to use the quadratic formula, and there's no real solutions from it. So that's what's not going to happen on your test, so I don't want you to worry about it. So that literally narrows it down to B. In a situation like that, though, I almost would have done the y-intercept first and narrowed it down, because the y-intercept, you just plug 0 in for x. And I'd get 8 over 4, which is 2. And then that's this one again, 0, 2. If it asks for, it could say x-intercepts are zeros at the top, like the one at the beginning. And so if it said like x plus 8, let's say, over x squared plus 4, then my zeros would come from my numerator, and it would be negative 8. So that wording could be 0, or it could be x-intercept. The 0, it would just be negative 8. the x-intercept would be negative 8, 0. And then if it asks for the y-intercept, you plug zeros in, and it'd be 8 over 4. So the y-intercept would be 0, 2. You just won't have it where you have to do the quadratic with a perfect cube, where you have to factor, yeah. Okay, so 58 says intercepts and asymptotes. So the intercepts are so the x-intercepts, I just use the numerator, because if I set it equal to 0, I'd multiply by the denominator, it'd cancel out. That'd be the first thing you lose, and you don't need it. So I just do the numerator. So 3x would equal negative 24, divide by 3, and x equals negative 8. That's your x-intercept. So already I would go look at my choices. X-intercept of negative 8, 0 rules this one out. Then I would go to my y-intercept, and if you look, all your y-intercepts are the same. I would skip the y-intercept because they're all the same. If I didn't have that happen, then for the y-intercept, you're plugging 0 in for x. So it'd be 3 times 0 plus 24, and negative 2 times 0 plus 4. And I'd get 24 over 4, which is 6. They're all 6, though. Good morning. Then you want to go horizontal asymptote. And horizontal asymptote is the one where you look at your exponents. So on the top, your exponent is 1. On the bottom, your exponent is 1. Those are the same. So this is that leading coefficient one. Y equals leading coefficient in the top, which is 3, over leading coefficient in the bottom, which is negative 2. When you look at your answer choices, they're on decimal format. That'd be negative 1.5. Now I can literally rule out all the other ones, and before I even get to the vertical asymptote, I know it's B. If I want to find the vertical asymptote, you set the denominator equal to 0. So negative 2x equals negative 4, and x equals 2. It doesn't have all of them together, but separately, yes.
Okay, and then would it be x-intercepts or y-intercepts?
It says zeros, I think,
Oh,
which is like the same as x-intercepts, just not in coordinate point form. One was an awful multiple choice. Like the one on your test is much more obvious. They were so similar that you had to like plug in another point in order to know that it snakes up like this. Like I had to plug in negative 2 in order to see what's happening there, because they all had a y-intercept of 1, and they all had the 1 and 1/8. So I literally had to, and the negative one was all the same too. I literally had to plug in negative 2. When you plug in negative 2, you got 64. So I knew it had to be up here at negative 2. And most of them was hard to tell. Like this one, it's at 50. This one, it's at 15. This one's 25. This one's 10. That's the only way I figured out from the multiple choice. The one on your test is a lot more obvious.
for our final, would you say use -1, 0, 1?
Yeah, should be fine.
So for those, we just plug in numbers.
Yeah.
Can you do 60?
All right, 60 says express in log form. So basically you're solving for x here. There's an e, right? So how do I get rid of an e? I ln both sides. So if I ln on both sides here, I get ln of e to the x plus 2 equals ln of 0.2. And then ln of e cancels and gives you what's on the exponent. So it'd be x plus 2 equals ln of 0.2. And then to isolate that x, you're going to subtract the 2. And then when you go to the answer choices, that order's not there. They're just flip-flopped. It says negative 2 plus ln of 0.2, which is D. So 61 is that like weird one, right? So if the base on the exponential function matches the base on the exponent with the log, then you just cancel them out. Log itself is log base 10. So these cancel and leave you with just pi. The long way around that is to convert it into log form, and it would be log base 10 of x equals log of pi. Log is still 10. And then the one-to-one property tells you to use the x equals pi. So you can do it that way, but the other way is obviously shorter. 62, you convert this into exponential, so x to the fourth equals 81. So I'm trying to figure out what number raised to the fourth power equals 81. You could work backwards here, like obviously 81 to the fourth is not 81. 4 to the fourth is 256. That one doesn't work. 3 to the fourth is the one that works. But if you want to work the other way, you're going to break the 81 down. So I want something that goes into it 4 times. 81 is 9 and 9, which is 3 and 3 and 3 and 3. There are 4 3s. So I know that 81 is 3 to the fourth. And then x is 3. 63, I would rewrite that as log base 5 of 625 to the 1/5. Couple ways to do this. One is rewrite 625 as 5 to a power. The other is set this equal to x. The 5 comes over and picks up the x. Then change the base to be the same. So 625 is 5 and 125, which is 5 and 25, which is 5 and 5. So 625 is 5 to the fourth. And that's being raised to the 1/5. You multiply out those exponents. And I get 5 to the 4/5. Going right. Okay, so 64. This one has 2 logs. We want to condense it first. Before you condense this, 3 on the front's got to become the exponent on that 2. So anything on the front will become the exponent. So this is log base 9 of 3 plus log base 9 of 2 to the third. Addition becomes multiplication. So log base 9 of 3 times 2 to the third is log base 9 3 times 8, or log base 9 24. If you don't know like how to even start them, look at your answers and see if it helps you figure out what you've got to do. Because there was only 1 log there, you know you've got to condense. Sophia.
So when there's like 2 log base 9s, you cancel one.
Well, when you condense, you would make it 1, yeah. But then instead of doing addition, you change it to multiplication.
Instead of 65, can you do 66?
Yes. All right, 66 says find the trig values of theta from the given information. Sine is 3 over 5 and it's in quadrant 2. So to get the actual signs to make sense, I'm going to put it in quadrant 2, which means I'm moving left and I'm moving up. Theta always goes in that little corner from the x-axis up to the radius or the hypotenuse. Sine is opposite hypotenuse. So 3 is opposite, 5 is hypotenuse. Now, value-wise, you should know that's a 3, 4, 5. That's going to make your life easier. So I know that this is a 4. But because it's in the second quadrant, that x is negative because you're moving left. And I promise you that, like, 1, you're not going to get all 5 of these in one question. Maybe you'll get just 1. But I guarantee one of them would have a positive 4 because that's like a distractor. So from here, I would know cosine is negative 4/5 because it's adjacent and opposite. Tangent is opposite adjacent, so negative 3/4. Cosecant's the reciprocal of sine, 5/3. Secant, reciprocal of cosine, negative 5/4. And cotangent, reciprocal of tangent, negative 4/3. But again, it's only going to ask you for like 1 of those, not all 5.
Oh, I didn't know if it was multiple choice.
Oh, no. Sorry. Yeah.
For something like that, so when you said like the 4 which was like positive, you mean like in the actual
Like one of those. So let's just say it said find the cosine.
cosine?
It would say cosine is negative 4/5, and then another choice would be answer cosine positive 4/5 to try to distract you.
Oh, because you have to remember that it's a factor.
Correct. Sophia.
I miss how you
Well, that's a triple 3, 4, 5. If you don't remember it, then you got to do the Pythagorean theorem. And then because it's in the second quadrant, you moved left. So it's negative. You're welcome. So your cosine function, right? Your cosine would start at the amplitude, which is 7. It's going to go down and back up again. So it has that, which already rules out that one, rules out that one, rules out that one, and rules out that one. Just with before you even did the period and the key points, this time it narrowed down. I don't think it happens that easily on the test. So you would also need to know your key points. But just that alone tells you it's D. Starts at 7, comes down, goes back up again. If you had to find the key points, like your B is 1, right? So the period would be 2 pi, and then your key points are 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. So this is what, remember yesterday we talked about like that one question had 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be in terms of pi like this is.
Okay,
You're welcome. B is also 1 here. This is a vertical shift up 4 because it's a positive 4. The A is negative 3 and the B is 1.
Can you do,
So this one, you say what?
I forgot what the B.
Oh, it's just an angle. You can make it X if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just the variable for it. This one, like if I started it out, I would have multiplied it out. And when you do, it's because those are opposites, it results in the difference of 2 squares. So you'd get cosine squared of beta minus 1 because the middle 2 terms would cancel out. And then I would have looked at my answers. It's not there. So then I would go to my trig identities. Cosine squared, because cosine squared equals 1. Cosine squared minus 1 means that it would be negative sine squared. Right? If I move the 1 on the side with the cosine, I have to move the sine to the other side, which makes it negative. And then I look at my answer choices, and it's still not there. But 1 over cosecant is the same thing as sine. It has to be negative, and that's answer B. So that one was weird just because, like, if it was actually to simplify it, it would have been left at that middle one. You just then have to look at your answer choices and see how could I keep going. No, I got sines. Oh, you mean like, so this was what I got by foiling it out. And then I took my sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1, and I moved the 1 on the side with the cosine, which means you have to move the sine to the other side. And that's where negative sine comes from. So if it's 2 squared, you can't cancel them. 2, you can't avoid the expanding and foiling. So I would just want to solve for whichever one might be easier to solve for in the bottom. I don't want to solve for either of the squareds in the top because then I get something like a plus and minus, and I have to plug in 2 things. So on the bottom, I can get x equals negative 4y, I could plug in, I'd have to do a fraction to get the x. So I would stick with this one. And then I'm going to take that negative 4y, and I'm going to plug it in to the top in place of the y. So x squared plus negative 4y. Wait, I just did the wrong thing. Sorry, I plugged into the wrong one. I will plug it into the x. Negative 4y squared plus y squared equals 425. Negative 4 squared is 16. Y squared plus y squared equals 425. And I get 17 y squared equals 425. And then I'll be honest, I totally cheated and used the calculator. The numbers are just not that big. This is 25. So y equals plus and minus the square root of 25, or plus and minus 5. So already I would go to my answers. These only have negative 5. They only have 1 point, so I know something's wrong there. And the y has to be plus or minus 5. C doesn't have that. Now you're down to just 2. Which one is which sign? And to do that, I'd go back to the one I solved for x. So I'd say x equals negative 4 times negative 5, which means x equals 20. So when y was negative 5, x was positive 20. And that's this one. And then x equals negative 4 times positive 5, x would equal negative 20. When x is negative 20, y is positive 5, and that still matches that one. You're welcome. Again, like those other big ones, you could take these answers and plug them in if you have no idea. It just has to work in both. So I would start with the bottom one, make it easy. Start with the bottom one, see what works for that one, and then maybe narrow it down from there.
So when you plug it, you plug into all.
It has to go into both, yeah. You're welcome. All right, so this one said, find the vertex focus of the parabola for the given equation. What's weird about this one is that the x squared has the value on it, and the squared term cannot. So if you look onto your, which again, this is what you'll get given. Is it still in my camera roll? All right, so this box is going to get given to you. And if you look at your parabolas, notice that the squares are on the left and they don't have anything in front of them. So I can switch this if I want to, but also I need to get rid of that -4. I got to get x squared by itself. So I would divide by -4, and I'd get -1/4 y equals x squared. If you want it to match your equations that are given to you, like these, then switch the sides so it's x squared equals -1/4 y. Now I know the x is squared, which means it's up or down. There's a -4p, which means this points down. So already I can go to my graphs and eliminate anything that doesn't point down, which I think the other ones did too. Like there was, okay, these are your other answer choices, which means you can also rule out this one. And then wait, I'm missing even one more. So we took the 1/4, set it equal to 4p, solve for p, which was 1/16. And because it points down, I know it's 1/16 lower than 0, 0, which means it is 0, -1/16. And that was answer choice D. 3-page question. This is ridiculous. Okay, find the vertex focus of the parabola from the given information. So it's a parabola. There's only one thing squared, which tells you that too. I want to isolate that squared thing. So I would do y squared equals -4x. There's nothing with the y and there's nothing with the x. So already I know my vertex is 0, 0. And that will help you narrow down, like b is already gone. I don't know about the other choices, but b is already gone. I know it's a y squared with a -p or -4p, which means it points left. And then 4p equals 4, so p equals 1. I'm going 1 to the left for the focus, which is that -1, 0, and that's answer choice A.
For 73, were there both?
All right, so it says find the center and the vertices located on the major axis of the ellipse from the given equation, select its graph. So my center comes from what's after x and what's after y. That means this one would be 0, 0. And already I would go to my answer choices and see if anything didn't say 0, 0 and eliminate. Make it easy. Then because it's an ellipse, I'm looking for the bigger denominator. The bigger denominator is 144. That's my A, and that's that's my A squared. And that's going to determine my vertices. Because it's under the x, this means it's horizontal. And it means A is 12. So from 0, 0, I would go right 12 and left 12. Which means my vertices are plus and minus 12, 0. This is one of the answer choices. Here, already I can cancel out. Here, already I can cancel out. Here, already I can cancel out. Okay. And then here's the only other one that has that option, that has the same vertices. So then if you look at your graph, that means that I'm supposed to go right and left that 12, which rules out this one and means this is my answer. I didn't even have to look at B. If you do look at B, B squared is 64, so B is 8, so you're going up and down 8, and that continues to match that graph.
Will it say if it's like an ellipse and all that?
Yeah, it says ellipse, hyperbola, parabola. Maria. Vertice, both vertice and foci are the y is being changed, right? If the y is being changed, that means it's going up and down the vertice and the foci, which means it would have to be vertical. If it's vertical, then the y comes first. If you look at your answer choices, they all the y's come first. This one has 2 negatives. That's not even a hyperbola. But the y comes first. Then, because the vertice is 3, I know my a squared is 9. That has to come first. Now I've narrowed it down to those two. The third one is an ellipse. That means I already have E without having to find B. If you did need to find B, C squared equals A squared plus B squared for a hyperbola. C squared is the 5 squared. A squared is the 3 squared. So 25, 9, B squared, and B squared is 16. And that matches what you get. No, I said that matches the answer that you get. Yeah.
Also, like the negative 1 on D, like,
Oh, yeah, that would also be, that would flip all your signs the other way. So, like, if nothing matched in all those ones, that -1 could flip your signs back the other way. It's not that tricky. Yeah. Sophia. The answer choices were weird. Like, you can ignore the whole, it's only the middles that you'd be choosing from. This is like one that should be generating extra ones. I forgot what the answer is. One of the middle ones. I think it's the 36. I think it was this one. But that format's just weird. Just ignore those other ones. So the center is 0, 0. The bigger number's under the y, which means this is vertical. So that means you're going up and down whatever the a is on the y. So the a would be 10. So from 0, 0, you're going up 10 and down 10, and that's C. All right, so 94 was the one that the minor axis was wrong. It doesn't work when it's the way it was. This one says the vertices and the minor axis length. So this is, I'm going to give you a piece, like the back of your reference sheet is a graph paper. This is when it might be beneficial to draw it out. If my vertices are at 4, -9, and 4, 7, already I know this is vertical. Which, if you look at your variable, if you look at your equations, if it's vertical, the larger number has to come under the y. So that eliminates this one, and this one, and this one. Your center is the midpoint between these two. So it would be 4 for the x, and then halfway between -9 and +7, if I add those together and divide by 2, is -1. So now I know my center is 4, -1, and that would be x -4 and y +1. That already gives me my answer without having to do anything else. If there were two the same, then I would need to know my a, and my a is the distance between the vertex and the center in either direction, which is 8. Now that means the squared term under the y should be 64, which lines up with this. And then the minor axis is 2b, and that tells me b is 4. So the other denominator should be 16.
major axis, what is that?
2a. Major 2a, minor 2b. Sophia. I didn't need the major because I knew A. A is the distance. It's half the distance between the two vertices, or from the center to one of the vertex. Folks, questions on 96 or 97? All right, 97, it says it's a hyperbola. So the first thing I know is it has to equal 1. I'm going to divide everything by 18. And I get y squared over 3 minus x squared over 6 equals 1. So my center is 0, 0. I can already eliminate 2 of these choices. The y comes first, so this is vertical. It goes up square root 3 and down square root 3. And that's this one here. That's the only one where the y changes. The other one, to get the foci, which square root 9 is 3. I don't know why it doesn't have that. But the other one, it would have to go in the same direction, and it ends up being that same one. 98, it won't say, like, select what it is. 98 would be like your complete the square one. And this one had fractions in it, so it's a little bit harder than you would see. But when we did it, like, on the notes last week, the conic one where we complete the square, I would say as long as you know that process, you should be good.